Welcome back to the Successful Working Parents Podcast, the podcast where we talk to successful working parents, if you can believe that. My guest today, she is a financial advisor, also known as the College Financial Lady. She is an author of the book How to Pay for College, mother of two. Ladies and gentlemen, Ann Garcia. Ann, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you today. So, How to Pay for College, a complete financial plan for funding your child's education. Let's just get right into it. Maybe just a really quick background on how you came to write the book.
Yeah, well, as a financial advisor, I found I was talking with a lot of two groups of people. One was parents who couldn't figure out where they were going to fit this massive expense of college in with all their other financial priorities or draws on their dollar, which I'm sure all of us are familiar with as parents of kids. And the other was young adults who had taken on so much student loan debt that they were really struggling to get started with the basic building blocks of their adult financial lives, whether that was saving for retirement, buying a house, sometimes even just having any savings at all. And I sort of realized that if I could help that first group, those parents who are trying to figure this out, I might see less of that second group because the kids wouldn't be stuck with that debt burden. I'm also, as you said, a parent of two, and so I knew this was something I needed to know for myself. So I just kind of dug into the topic. And as time went by, I started writing a blog about it. And when the pandemic hit, I had the opportunity to turn a lot of that into a book, and so I did, and so here it is
Here
out
we
out in
are.
the world.
Awesome. Well, I think it's a really great resource. I'll make sure people have a link to it in the show notes. But I have a lot to say and ask about college and the paying for it. Well, first of all, do you think college is still important to go to?
Absolutely, absolutely. The benefits of a college degree are amazing. I mean, there's like if there was a pill we could develop that would cause people to be happier, live longer, not have type 2 diabetes, not get divorced, um, not be unemployed, we would spend probably billions, if not trillions of dollars to develop it. And we have that solution. It's called college. And instead we've made it super expensive and hard to get at. There are, like I said, tremendous benefits to a college degree. College graduates earn about $1 million more over their lifetime than those without degrees. The unemployment rate for college graduates is about half what it is for those without a degree. And those are just the financial benefits. The non-financial benefits are massive as well. You know, college graduates have lower rates of heart disease and type 2 diabetes. Now, obviously, there's a socioeconomic component um, to those, and that's part of the whole package. But college graduates marry at higher rates, divorce at lower rates. They live longer lives. They self-rate higher on life satisfaction surveys. So, you know, when you're a parent thinking about your kids, these are absolutely things that you want for your kids. You know, my kids are a little bit older. I have twins who graduated from college last spring, and at my son's college graduation, there was a fabulous speaker, and he said, you know, going to college doesn't make you a better person. It makes you a better prepared person to tackle the challenges that we face in the world. And I love that saying. But shortly after his graduation, I saw a study that said that college graduates are more likely to vote. They're more likely to not just befriend their neighbors, but to help their neighbors. They're more likely to volunteer. They're more likely to donate to charity. So I think you might be able to say that actually going to college might in fact make you a better person.
Well, that's certainly compelling. I hadn't thought about some of the just lifestyle effects of going to college. Although, of course, it might be some correlation versus causation to your
Yeah,
point,
absolutely. Absolutely.
but they're still very interesting. What about just going to like a better or more prestigious school? So, like, if we all agree college is important, is it important to go to the best school you can, and which could ultimately be the most expensive school you can, or will any degree do?
Well, that's a great question. And in fact, there's been a lot of research done on that. One of the biggest studies was a study called the Gallup Purdue Index that was done a few years ago, where they surveyed adults who were successful in life and tried to tie that back to what aspect of college made them successful. And what they found was that it had nothing to do with where they went to college, nothing to do with, private versus public, selective versus non-selective, urban, rural, large, small. None of that factored in. And instead, it was all about experiences, specifically things like finding mentors among faculty, feeling like professors cared about you, having opportunities to apply classroom learning outside of the classroom to a job or an internship, working on a project that took a semester or longer to complete, participating in extracurriculars. And the great news is those are available at every college. So all those things are available to you at a variety of different price points. Speaking from my own experience, my family were a focus group of two. I have twins who, as I said, just graduated from college. One went to a single digit acceptance rate private school that is the world's most expensive college. She had a great financial aid package. So I'm not saying, it's okay for you, but not okay for me. She had a great financial aid package there. My son went to a public school that you can basically sign up to go to. And they both have pretty much identical jobs right now. Same type of company, same corporate management training role, same salary, but for the fact that she was computer science and he was finance. And so their actual roles are different. They pretty much ended up in exactly the same place, despite two vastly different pathways to get there.
So what you're saying is don't go Ivy League if you don't have to.
How you go to college matters a lot more than where you go to college.
Okay. It's a better way to
And
put it.
and people, when people ask for advice, I feel like so often I give kind of goofy sounding advice about how to pick a college, but how does your kid make friends?
Yeah.
How do they engage in the classroom? Find places that are like that, because really the relationships they form are much more important. Um,
Yeah. I mean, I'm very curious about this topic because I have a 6-month-old daughter, and never too early to start planning, as I'm sure
yeah,
we'll get into. But yeah, I think about, will college even be a thing in 17, 18 years? I think about my own experience. I went to Fordham University. Shout out, go Rams! And I did actually have a great experience. I don't know how much I really learned, if I'm being honest with you, or apply what I learned to what I do now. But to your point, I mean, I have 10 great friends that I'm still in touch with every day, and a lot of really great experiences and connections and stuff like that. So it's definitely had a huge impact on my life. So I do feel like I would encourage her for the life experience. But Fordham is known to be fairly expensive. I did get a decent financial aid package as well. So I do feel like I would encourage her to have the experience, but not stretch us just to have that experience. I think that's kind of
exactly.
where I'm thinking.
There's over 4,000 different colleges out there. Chances are good you can find something that works academically and socially and financially for your family.
Why does college cost so much? What's really going on there? It's getting pretty nutty.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think there's so many ways to answer that. I mean, on the state side, we can look at declining state funding for higher ed. We can look at higher numbers of students going to college, resulting in the need for new facilities and faculty and whatnot. Higher administrative costs are a big piece of it. This is not a function of professors getting rich off their salaries. It's a lot of administrators, and not just highly paid presidents and football coaches and stuff like that. It's having more support staff to make sure that students are able to graduate in 4 years versus 5, 6. Other things. Is it lazy rivers and dorms, all those kinds of things. But I think one of the factors that we don't talk enough about is a big part of the reason college costs so much is that people are willing to pay those costs. If we all just agreed universally that we weren't going to pay $85,000 a year for college, college wouldn't cost $85,000 a year. But if you're running the show at Stanford, at Harvard, at any of those places, and you just turned away 20,000 people who are willing to pay $85,000 a year, why would you charge anything less than that?
Yeah, that's a good point. But
And so, so if we all just decide for ourselves that rather than paying that, we're going to look for the colleges that offer scholarships to students like us, and we're going to use our budget to guide our college choices, I think we might see a lot less tuition inflation.
Yeah, I mean it's a tricky one. There's just so probably the demand is so high. There's so many people. It would be hard to like have a concerted effort to do that. I mean, it's like I live in New York
Right.
City, and it's like the rent is so high. If we all left, they have to lower the rent. But there's just so many people that want to live
But you're
here.
not going to leave. And
Yeah,
when it comes to your kids, I mean, we would all take a bullet for our kids.
yeah.
So to sacrifice financially for our kids seems like that's doing right by them. And in
Uh,
many cases it's not.
yeah. Well, also, do you know what percentage of students are paying the full amount? I feel like most people are getting some kind of aid or package. Is that fair to say?
It varies a lot from school to school. I would say at the most selective private schools, it's typically between a quarter and a third are paying full price, and everyone else is getting some form of discount. And then it's just a matter of understanding the scholarship landscape, figuring out what scholarships you're eligible for, and applying to colleges that offer those types of scholarships.
Talk to me about student loan debt. Also, kind of getting out of hand, certainly a bit of a crisis now. Do you feel like it's something that we should really be taking into consideration as far as don't go to a school that is going to put you in debt, or do you think it's something that's it's worth it again for this all the reasons we talked about why it's worth going to college?
Yeah, so I think it's important to break the student debt landscape down into its component parts. So there are several groups who struggle with student loans. One is people who go to graduate school in non-high paying fields, because graduate school degrees are the ones that generate large student loan debt and
Right,
at,
like
at high
you get an
rates.
MBA in like anthropology or something like that.
Exactly,
No
or
offense to any of my
masters in
listeners.
social work, or
Sure.
we always think of doctors and lawyers as being the ones with the big student loan debt, but it's physical therapists, it's veterinarians, it's nurses, people who are pursuing careers that aren't necessarily going to have the salaries that are needed. So that's one group that really struggles. The other group is people who go to for-profit colleges. So, all those colleges you see advertising, not during college football games, but the technical certificates and the cooking schools and the massage therapist schools, and oftentimes you see them being sued by the Department of Education for defrauding students.
Uh-huh.
That's another group that struggles with student loans. A third group is students who take out loans for undergraduate and don't graduate. And then a final group is parents who take out Parent Plus loans. One group that doesn't struggle with student loans are students who take out the federal direct student loan and only the federal direct student loan, and then graduate and move on to a productive career. So if you want to think of a guardrail around your borrowing, the federal direct student loan, which is $27,000 total over 4 years, is a great place to start and finish your student loan borrowing. There's very low default rates. Typically, if you take out that loan as a student, you'll pay about $325 a month for 10 years and be done with your loans. The earning power that your degree confers on you will more than cover that. So that's not problem borrowing. What is problem borrowing is Parent Plus loans, because parents can borrow up to the full cost of attendance. And what I see parents doing a lot is saying, well, this is only $4,000 outside of our budget, so let's do it and we'll take out the Parent Plus loans. Well, it's $4,000 times 4 years. Oh, and then they have two more kids coming, and those kids are going to expect the same treatment as the first one. And so suddenly it's not $4,000, it's 12 times $4,000, which is, close to $50,000. And, parents are in their 50s when kids are graduating from college, and that oftentimes is debt that they take into retirement.
So it really should be something people consider. It's not just blankly worth going to college if it's going to or getting a master's degree if it's going to put you in massive debt or put your parents into debt. It sounds like it's you're better off. It's important to get a degree, but you're better off doing that in a way that doesn't stretch you thin or give you a lot of debt.
Exactly. And the good news is college is available at literally every price point. So my son has a friend who got her degree for $0. She did 2 years of free community college, and then she was working for Starbucks. Starbucks has a tuition partnership program with Arizona State. She finished her degree online at Arizona State. Her diploma looks the same as everyone else's. But her parents weren't able to support her financially, and she was interested in not very high paying career paths, and so it was really important to her to graduate without any debt, and that was a great pathway for her. And there's literally everything in between. So the important thing for families is to figure out what pathways you want to create for your kids, save appropriately, budget appropriately, support your kids in finding those options. And the sooner you start on that pathway, particularly the sooner you start saving, the more work your money does for you. The later you start, the more work you do.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. So, maybe some practical steps and ideas. Let's take me as an example.
Mhm.
I might as well profit from this conversation. W-2 dual income parents, newborn, new child, like anybody in like that 0 to 1 to 2 range. What are some of the things that you recommend them doing?
So first and foremost, I would say open a 529 college savings account for your child if you haven't already. A 529 is just a dedicated college savings account. A couple things are really nice about it, particularly for dual income households. One is the growth and the distributions are all tax free. So if you're in a high income tax bracket, this is an opportunity to have some tax free savings. Something else that I love about 529s, particularly for young families, when you have so many draws on your income, where even though your income may seem high, it probably doesn't feel high, is they have a tool called a gifting page. And what a gifting page does is it lets you share a link to your child's 529 account with people who are generous with your child. Maybe you have grandparents who give them birthday gifts or holiday gifts, aunts, uncles, anyone else. Share that link. And if you're not able to contribute, they can contribute for you. Um, and the great thing about savings is what savings will increase your child's college choices. So the more savings you have, the more choices they're going to have. And if you're able to take advantage, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but take advantage of the generosity of family and friends, and maybe tell them, hey, we've got plenty of toys, we got plenty of onesies. What we'd
We
really like
do. We
you
definitely
to
do. We
start.
definitely do. If any
All
of,
those
any
things
of you
you
are
end up
listening,
giving away without
yeah,
anyone having touched them.
yeah, we got enough of that stuff. If any generous family members are listening, so yeah, I'll be sending you a gift link shortly.
Yeah. And then, 529s often, they're typically run by the states, and most states offer a tax benefit to residents of the state who contribute to their state's plan. So it's just a way to create some additional free money for college. If you start saving early and you have all that compound growth happening tax free, you'll probably have 25 to 30% more money in your account than you would if you saved in a taxable account.
Now, it does need to be spent on education to be tax free. Is that right?
Right, but that's the definition of what a 529 can be spent on is pretty broad. So, tuition, fees, room and board, books, a computer. At a 4-year college, it can be spent for community college. It can be spent oftentimes for, if you take a dual credit course in high school where you have to pay college tuition to get the college credits, you can use it for that. You can use it for apprenticeship programs. And a new provision that just came into effect this year is that up to $35,000 in a 529 can be rolled over to a Roth IRA, tax and penalty free for the beneficiary. So, I know one of the biggest hurdles that parents of young kids have is oftentimes they'll say, well, I don't know if my kid's going to go to college, so I don't think this is a priority for us in the short term.
Yeah.
The problem is you only have a short term to prepare for college. So instead of looking at a 529 as just a college savings fund, you could look at it as a launch fund for your child, because if they don't end up going to college, you roll that money to a Roth IRA, and in there they have retirement savings, they have funds that they can withdraw, because with the Roth IRA you can take your contributions back out without paying taxes or penalties. Um, you can also use the money for grad school. You can change it to another family member, change the beneficiary to another family member. So they're very, very flexible.
Yeah, I mean, I'm essentially in that exact state of mind right now of like I'm not sure if she's gonna go to college. I don't know if college is even gonna be a thing in 20 years. But it sounds like a 529 is still smarter than just like a traditional like high yield savings account for now.
Absolutely. I mean, high yield savings accounts in this current moment are terrific because interest rates are so high, but that isn't always the case. And your high yield, your savings account isn't going to keep pace with inflation the way investing in a 529 will.
Is it ever too late in the child's life to start a 529?
I would say no,
Or like legally,
particularly.
there's not. There's no rules about it.
No, there's no rule, and in fact, you could start a 529 for yourself
Mm,
if you, you could
never.
make yourself the beneficiary of it, and then roll it over to your own Roth IRA if your kid
Okay.
doesn't go to college. Change the beneficiary to them if they do. Um, yeah, so it's never too late, and and honestly, 529s can be a great late stage planning tool, particularly if you're in a state that offers a state tax benefit for it, because it's just a way of increasing the dollars available to you.
Now, when I was a young man, maybe in the 8 to 12 range, my relatives would often give me money as birthday gifts and Christmas gifts. We were Italian. I feel like everybody was putting money
Mhm.
into cards, you know. And my dad would make me. He would save it. He would like make me give it to him and save it, and it was often not a tense conflict, and it probably has some effect on my my thoughts on money to this day. But do you think that that's actually an important thing to do, is to encourage your kids as they get these gifts to put them into some sort of long-term savings, or how do you suggest parents handle when the kid's old enough to like actually have the money and be given the money themselves?
Yeah. Here's what I think is a great thing for families to do. And this will be a little bit of a roundabout answer to those questions, to that question. I think that families should talk more about money. And that doesn't, and I think what holds us back from that is we think that we have to have something important to say, like it has to be about investing or about, Roth IRAs versus traditional. And and I think if we have conversations about money that are things like, hey, we save up every year so we can go on vacation, it's important for us to spend time together as a family. Or, we're not going to eat dinner out tonight because we've already spent our eating out budget, and we need to have money left over for college savings. Or we are saving for your college because it's important to us that you be able to go, and we want to create additional choices for you. I think if you start out by having those conversations, then when money comes up for the kids, you've already given them a little bit of a frame of reference about, every dollar only gets spent once, and it can be beneficial to set some of what you have aside for the future.
How long have you been a financial advisor?
About 15 years now.
Okay, so most of your kids'
Yeah.
lives. So when they were a little bit older, did they find it like helpful that you had this skill set, or were this like, oh, mom's gonna find out about this money and she's gonna like make me do something really boring with it? Like, it's almost like when your parents is a therapist and it's like, oh man, like it might be good, but it might
Right.
be really annoying because they're gonna analyze everything. Like, were you just like diversify these $5?
So I think my kids found it super annoying in a lot of ways, but I think they're also finding it helpful now. Like I had a real
Yeah.
proud mama moment a few months ago when my son started his job and he's like, I'm going to max out my HSA because it's triple tax deferred.
Wow. Nice.
I was like, right on.
Yeah. Yeah. As with
But,
most
I did
things.
set up Roth IRAs for them as soon as they started making money. And the good thing about that is now that they're out on their own and making money, they have that account. So if I suggest that they put money in their Roth IRA, they're not like, I don't have, how do I have a Roth IRA? What is it? Where did I do it? It's just like, hey, link your bank account here and transfer some money in.
Yeah. I mean, as with most things that relate to your parents, I'm sure it was annoying when they're younger, and now they probably really appreciate that about you.
Yeah, but well, maybe I know I joke. I'm like, I wasn't much help on, hair and makeup, but I'm rocking the 401k enrollments with them.
Hey, hair and makeup don't pay the bills, does it?
Yeah. I will say for my kids, they heard a lot of secondhand horror stories from me of people's student loan experiences. And
Yeah,
I think that made them very considerate of their college choices, where I didn't have to spend a lot of time explaining why we weren't going to choose colleges that weren't going to offer them scholarships.
sure. And I do want to say, it wasn't my parents, but a mentor of mine, like my first year of working, essentially like forced me to fill out my 401k form to have that money go there. And I don't think I know I wouldn't have done it for a while. And there's just a lot of money in there that just certainly wouldn't have been in there. So shout out to him if he's listening. But it's
Yeah,
important. It is important to have those sort of guiding forces when you're young, even in your early 20s. You don't know what you're doing, really.
absolutely.
Okay, we're gonna move into the final segment called Ann's Advice Corner. So I'm gonna ask you for some advice on a few topics. Are you ready?
Yeah.
What advice would you have for somebody that wants to write a book like you did?
Oh my gosh. I would say if you want to write a book, start by writing something like a blog. The most important thing to write a book is having a writing habit because you will spend a lot of time writing, and doing something like a blog where you keep yourself accountable to write on a regular basis, to carve out time for writing, um, and where you give yourself the opportunity to see, do I really like writing enough to write a book? Because this may sound nuts, but there's a lot of writing involved in writing a book. Um,
But
and
I
I
believe
think
it.
that may be the most underappreciated element of it. And so you will be carving out time, evenings, weekends, and other times when you're used to doing things that are slightly more fun. So if you don't already know that writing is something that you enjoy and that you're willing to commit time to, now figure that out before you get too far down the path.
What advice do you have for someone that struggles to balance work life and family life?
I think, I feel like work life balance is something that I've always been really good at. And I feel like the reason that is I've always chosen my career based on what I want it to do for me as a person. Not, I never said I want to be a financial planner. I said I want a job where I control my schedule, where I have a lot of intellectual stimulation, and where I work with people that I like. And financial planning is a great career for that. I worked in technology early in my career, mostly because I wanted to be able to travel, not because I cared about computers at all. In fact, I always thought, having grown up in Silicon Valley, I always thought that was the last thing I would ever do. But I was like, hey, I want to travel, and this will give me an opportunity to travel. So figure out what it is that you want from your work, and pursue your career in that way.
What advice do you have for self care as a busy working parent?
Make time for it. It's funny, we had this experience last week where we had this crazy storm here. We were without power for most of the week. um, our neighbors All of our neighbors had significant damage to their homes from trees falling on them. And and part of us were like, oh my gosh, we're so fortunate that that wasn't us, as we're sleeping in our basement, terrified, walking, watching trees. and
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
and it's 42 degrees in our house. And you know and finally we took a step back and we're like, it's okay for us to feel stressed out and to take care of ourselves too. We don't have to just feel bad for everyone else. So my husband went to a concert, I went and got a massage, and it was it made a big difference. But that, I think, when you have young, it's easy, a lot easier for me to do that now because I don't have to worry about childcare or anything like that. But I think that's a great, date night conversation to have with your spouse. Let's carve out some time for self-care, whatever that means to you, whether it's exercise, whether it's time to read a book, whether it's getting a massage, and just get it on the calendar and make it happen.
What is the best advice you've ever received?
Best advice I ever received. That's a good question. I, you know, I wouldn't say it's pursue your passion. I would say figure out what makes you happy, and arrange your life around that. I grew up in Silicon Valley, where I, was surrounded by incredibly wealthy people, and especially, by a lot of sudden wealth and huge wealth, and ostentatious wealth. And um and so so I think a piece of advice that I got was to not try to compare myself financially to other people. That wasn't necessarily going to be a measure of happiness, and was certain to not lead me to a path of happiness.
That's a good one. What advice would you give to your former self?
To my former self, I think, I'm a financial planner, not just by trade, but by nature. I'm always looking forward. I would like to say, spend more time in the present. When you have kids, the people always tell you the days are long and the years are short, and it is so true. I remember a friend of mine, when our kids were in like elementary school, saying, we only have 7 more summers left, so I've planned out all these summer vacations that we're going to take. I was like, what? We've got forever. We're like in
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden I was like, wait, we only have 3 more summers left.
Yeah, it's true. It flies by. I saw that today. I saw a post today. It was like you only have 18 summers with your kids, really,
Yeah.
depending on where they go. Okay, last question. So by the time this podcast comes out, I think my daughter will probably be like 7, maybe 8 months old. So what advice do you have for me as the father of a 7 to 8 month old daughter?
Um, get plenty of sleep so you can be present in all those moments that matter so much.
It's a good one. I appreciate that. Well, Anne, this has been a great conversation. Where can people go to learn more about you or connect with you or anything that you like to share or promote?
Well, my book is How to Pay for College, and it's available from Amazon, Barnes and Noble, bookstores everywhere. My website is howtopayforcollege.com. And I've got, loads and loads of content there about all different elements of planning for college, from, saving to choosing colleges to filing financial aid forms, which will probably still be a thing 17 years from now.
I'm sure, yeah. All right, well, I'll be sure to link to that in the show notes. Ann Garcia, ladies and gentlemen. Ann, thank you so much.
Thank you.